It was Friday afternoon. We had just finished up with a break and we started working again. We started digging again. We got down there, realized we hit that drainage line and it needed to be repaired. So the laborer I was working with, he climbed out of the trench, go back to the truck to get a piece of pipe so we could splice this thing back together. And when he did that, I got down on the bottom of my knee in that 6.5 foot trench and just started cleaning out around both sides of that piece of pipe so we can make that repair. That laborer I was working with, I'm not really sure. I figure he was out of that trench for maybe 40 or 50 seconds or so, and that trench caved in on me.
Having a dad that starts a company at your kitchen table, you hear about all the injuries that happen. I recall my dad talking about cave-ins from a very young age. My dad was involved in a partial trench collapse that broke his pelvis when I was probably junior high age, and those things kind of stick in your mind.
And they figured from where the dirt fell, it was like getting hit by a truck doing over 70 miles an hour. Every time I'd exhale, it just kept crushing my chest. And it got to a point where I couldn't inhale, I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating, I was trapped, I was gasping for air, I was fighting for my life, and I pretty much knew that I was gonna die right there in the bottom of that trench.
The decision for Rollout Construction to really invest in safety and reinvent its safety program wasn't inspired by a major employee calamity, if you will. But we know enough people in this industry who have gone through that. An experience like that, it takes the whole question of whether investment in safety is important off the table.
At United Rentals, we don't just look at ourselves as merely an equipment rental company. We're a company that's focused on providing services and solutions to our customers. And we have customers that are working in very challenging situations, and we feel like we can be part of that resolution for them. We have contractors that come through our facilities on a regular basis. Some contractors send the same employees through a competent person class, an excavation awareness class, or a confined space entry class on an annual basis or every 2 years, just so that those employees recognize not only the hazards they're working in, but how to protect themselves and how to represent their company professionally if an OSHA inspector should come by. Internally at United Rentals, we feel like we can share and learn from our customers as they pursue their journey to building the safety culture and sustaining the safety culture.
The biggest challenge I see is the veteranage and the senior leadership that's exiting the workforce today. The young generation hasn't been exposed to this type of work. That competent person who's generally a foreman or up that's on the project, they're inundated with all the facets of paperwork, job site security, new employee orientation, who's coming next, new equipment coming in, equipment rolling out, larger project structures, so that new employee's not getting the focus that they should have.
The majority of people that walk through our door are going to be in a trench, and they're not prepared for that. One of the things that we do is that we have a pretty rigorous orientation program. All through their career here, we offer different types of safety training.
We now have a 2 full-day onboarding process plus another 3 days of training before that new employee ever gets to the field. It's required for us to have one competent person on a project. I believe 2 or 3 are required on a project. So we are training multiples on every job site because that foreman or superintendent may have to leave the job.
I actually invited OSHA and Nebraska Workforce Development to come in and help us, which a lot of people were like, are you crazy? You're asking them to come help you? And I'm like, well, they have a program where, you kind of get a pass. So we did that. We retrained all of our supervisors. The safety manual stopped being in the office and was in everyone's truck. We inventoried all of our safety equipment, redid the employee safety manual, specific confined space entry, and the forms that go with those. And then we eventually hired a full-time safety manager.
We also recognized we didn't have enough touch points out there. So we've added 18 safety professionals to our group. We have auditors out auditing in the field, working with the crews so that we can identify trends. So we look at touching every facet of the craft to make sure we're training and exposing them so we don't have any trench violations.
The laborer that I was working with, luckily he heard me scream. And he came running over the side of that bank and He kind of had an idea where I was. He didn't know for sure, but they knew if they used shovels, they were never going to get to me in time, and they probably wasn't going to make it. But they also know if they used the machine, that there was a good chance they were going to hit me and kill me with that machine. Luckily for me, they decided to use the machine. They took that first couple feet of dirt off. They didn't hit me. They grabbed shovels and they started to dig. It took them 10 minutes to get to me. When they got to me, I was dead. I had no pulse. I was blue in the face. I had dirt caked in my nose and my mouth. I was dead.
The question that you have to ask yourselves is, can I live with an employee death or a serious employee injury? And if you balance that against a new truck, new computers, some other thing, I think it's clear.
If we work safe, we approach the job in the correct way, we don't have downtime, we don't have incident reporting, we don't have incident stoppage, we don't have people going to the doctor, we don't have people being cared for at the doctor, and off and on from that point on, when something like that happens. So it's critical that we have that culture.
When I see companies that take safety seriously and make that investment in their employees and send their employees to training, what I also recognize is a high level of morale with those types of organizations.
Since we've identified all these things and started investing in employees and the training and all the facets of the culture, the core values, the mission, vision, all the above, our retention, our turnover rate's cut by 55% the last 2 years. We are becoming the place of choice. Our people want to work here. They're seeing it as a career now, not a job.
When we're out there working and, we don't have these trainings, we don't have that proper safety equipment, it's not always the guy that's hurt that's affected. I put my coworkers in a terrible situation. That coworker, he had to dig me out, he had to call my wife, he had to give me CPR. He was standing where I was just 40 or 50 seconds before. It would have caved in on both of us, neither of us would have made it out that day. All the therapy, the financial strain, there's just a whole bunch of things. Even 15 years later, it took me about 11 to 12 years before I'd even swim again.
When a contractor sends an employee to United Rentals training class, it begins with they're making the investment in that employee. And for those employees that want to grow and make a career out of the construction industry, it's a personal responsibility that they have in obtaining that information and translating it to the job site and not only protecting themselves and making sure that they're working in a safe manner, but also representing that company in a professional manner.
It's really beneficial for us to have a partner like United Rentals Trench Safety. They have the resources. They have trained and qualified instructors. They have wonderful content that is developed across a breadth of construction experiences.
I think the material sets itself apart. I think the curriculum sets itself apart. But back to the people, I think a very important part of that is a follow-up that they have, that they make sure that our classes just isn't a checklist.
United Rentals, I believe, is staying state-of-the-art on trench excavation protection equipment. I'll say this about United Rentals: we pick up the phone, they're there. Shoring boxes, aluminum shields, build boxes, and we get special type holes, crazy things going on. Pick up the phone, they're out there, they're helping our teams, educate our teams, as well as design the shoring and the protection we need for those excavations.
So it's obviously very valuable to have a partner locally who can get you what you need, who is very attentive to customer service, who is reasonable with their prices. A lot of times too, it's just so nice to have another set of eyes on something. A company like United Rentals and their representatives, they travel around and they see way more different types of projects than we probably do. And so they bring really good ideas and really good solutions.
Make sure you get that safety equipment. Make sure you get that competent person training, whether United Rental offers it or whoever else. It's important that whatever you have on that, if you're going on that project, you have that training so you know what you're looking at, you know what you're against, and just to make sure you use it, because you may get away with it for a year, you may get away with it a year or two. It took my boss 30 years, but eventually you're going to get in a situation where them trenches are going to cave in and you're going to have a fatality. You may not be as lucky to make it out, and it's going to change your life.
It's a culture of personal responsibility, bottom line. And if we don't emphasize that at every level, at all times, it'll fail. So it's great to have a partner that we can count on to come in and help us do the right thing.
The main thing is it's a core value of who United Rentals is, and it starts with the people. And the reality is you can't care about your employees' well-being if you're getting them injured in the line of fire.
hopefully the entire industry of construction gets on board, because when you see the stats of how many people die in a trench excavation yearly, and you look at what industries they come from, there's got to be a focal point there. And I just believe the industry's got to get better as a whole.
We want to be a resource here, that we're going to continue to grow our department to provide that next generation the safety training that they need to be in this industry.